Right, after the coffee break, let's all get seated and continue with the program. Second to last session today is the ELG industry session with some contributions from European language technology industry developers. And sharing this session is our colleague and ELG partner Gerhard Backfried from Hensoldt Analytics, and I'll let him introduce the panelists. Gerhard.
Thank you. Thank you, Georg, and welcome everybody back. I hope you're still all awake. We're back to the industry session, and let me just emphasize that this is also the third time we have an industry session. The industry is an integral part of European language technology, and it's also an integral part of the ELG project. To get started, we will have 6 high-level and renowned guests, 2 of which you can see already over there. The others are going to be virtual. And for starters, I'd like to take you back a little bit into the previous sessions of Metaforum and the previous sessions of the industry session at Metaforum. These are the logos of the companies and of the partners interested in the ELG who were so kind to take part in the ELG industry session and tell us about what they liked about the ELG, what they were missing, what they were hoping for. Those are some of the echoes. And I believe even from the keynote this morning to the previous session, you will have heard the one or the other, because those are recurring topics. They've been around: datasets, corpora, the ever-growing models, the hunger for GPU power, for memory, for energy. On the other hand, the possibility to extend the own capabilities, open up new market segments, get seen, be seen, gain visibility. The ELG itself, the grid, is one side of the coin. The other one is actually the community, because we shouldn't forget the ELG it's a technical thing, but it doesn't live in a vacuum. It only lives if it's filled by people, if it's filled by activities. It's filled by us and by our customers and helpers. So reaching new market segments, the topic of how can I get access to additional sources? How can I share them legally? What about licensing? It's a minefield very often. Knowledge gain and training and expertise that can be raised and can be gained by participating in the ELG. The awareness of an industry in Europe, of our industry, make it seen, make us heard. That's also a vehicle for that. Exposure, and last but not least, I'm sure many of you receive the ELG newsletter. Many of you have been in touch with the ELG through the various communication channels. Think of it as intelligence also. Think of it as receiving up-to-date, first-hand information about what's going on in the LT industry, in the LT business, also in research. It's something that we've come across many times when we were talking about innovation in the ELG. And this is also a vehicle for you that you can make use of to learn more and stay and be up to date. Now, without much further ado, these are the participants today. As you can see, they come from Bulgaria, the Czech Republic, Sweden, Spain, Estonia, and Latvia. So we have a wide distribution across the continent, across many different languages, also across many different sectors, which is, I would say, very typical of the European LT landscape. With this, I'd like to hand over to our first guest, Julina, and I will be managing, I guess, the slides. Julina, if you say next, then I will just push next. Just a word of caution to all my honored guests, please do stay in time. We have about 10 minutes each maximum, so please do stay in time. And with this, I hand over to Julina. We cannot hear you, Julina, yet. Yes, we can hear you. The floor is yours.
This was a miracle almost. Pleasure seeing you again today. My name is Julina, and I will briefly present to you Identrics, where I'm part of the data science team, and how we benefit from the European language grid. If we start the presentation, please, just next slide.
Sorry.
So first, a bit about Identrics. We deal with the creation of automated solutions which allow organizations to delegate their menial data processing tasks to machines so that humans can focus on high-end, insight-oriented work. We're proud to say that currently we're one of the biggest collectors of online news. On a daily basis, we collect close to 2 million texts, which position us among the best in automated media monitoring and answering questions like who is saying what about whom. We offer both ready-to-use models and fully tailored data science as a service. Our solutions range from knowledge extraction from unstructured data, such as named entity recognition and sentiment analysis, all the way to automated text classification and content generation, like, for example, generating short summaries of large amounts of text, for which last year we were awarded with a Gold Stevie to a big extent, because we also develop algorithms that make sure that there are no factual hallucinations in the generated texts. Next slide. Okay, we have more than 5 years of experience in data lake development and maintenance, which have taught us to respect the saying garbage in, garbage out. Our information extraction models gather information from many sources. They produce a structured representation of the relevant information. And the main goal of this process is to organize the automatically collected proprietary and open source information, to put it in a semantically precise form so that it's useful to people. Keeping high value in the warehousing and information extraction domains is one of the main reasons behind our success in the development of AI-based solutions for media monitoring, publishing, and risk intelligence. We provide automated reports with quantitative and qualitative analysis of the data a company wants to gain knowledge from. And these solutions helps media intelligence providers to save time and money, to expand their tendering and free up their talent so they can focus on human intelligence intensive tasks. We also help companies to embrace AI to identify potential risks and issues in real time, to research people of interest. In other words, we help risk intelligence providers to uncover the true meaning behind data and to anticipate, prepare, and manage risk better in today's ever-changing communication environment. Next slide. And here you can see our end-to-end general pipeline. Imagine that, for example, the Bulgarian Ministry of Defense wants to know the main context in which the ministry is being mentioned, a very hot topic right now. Of course, we start with gathering and warehousing bulks of data. In this case, it could be daily news from various local media sources. Next, we process the gathered data and extract various statistics out of it. For example, we can extract the news which mentioned the ministry to analyze the polarity of the text in which the ministry appears it. We can extract the topics of those news and even summarize them. And the last step is, of course, the deployment of the solution as a product for client use. Next, please. And where all of this begins, of course, is the beginning. In the beginning was the word. So as this phrase from the most old book in history continues, the word was God and words are everything. If you want to extract and communicate even some basic meaning, we need good understanding of the beginning of the words. So far, so good, but understanding even words automatically is challenging. And as the next slide would say, one of the points of departure here, as it was mentioned multiple times today, is multilingualism, which is at the heart of the European idea. We have a bunch of official languages and dozens of regional and minority languages. On top of that, the language data varies greatly across clients, domains, styles, and many other linguistic nuances. And due to the fact that most of our clients need adaptation of our existing technologies to their specific domains, to their use case, and sometimes to their specific language, this diversity setup creates some challenges. Among the main we face in our work are related to the access to resources covering this whole diversity. And as a result, many of our projects include that language resource development step, data annotation and so on, which is a relatively slow process, and even more due to the fact that when producing a new data resource and a model, there is this constant evaluation and correction process, when an information is misinterpreted or when a bias emerges. Of course, there is the ethics and considerations as well, which we aim to find by prevention in the training data, validation of the input and output sequences, fact preserving and checking procedures, and various human-in-the-loop processes. And taking all of this into consideration is a challenge to reach stable quality for different languages, even when it comes to words. Everything that doesn't cover this diversity holds back the potential that we have in Europe, so we put extra efforts addressing this. Next slide, if possible. And we feel that we share this respect towards the linguistic diversity with the European Language Grid, who are currently fighting against the danger of digital extension for many of the European languages by providing language technology platform and marketplace in Europe. Can we have the next slide? And the next one also. Okay. We especially appreciate the catalog of the available resources and the technologies gathered by the ELG, together with the detailed metadata about the resources it stores. This is why we use it as a starting point for when we research a new topic. We always start with the platform. We value the fact that the entire catalog of the grid is available as a Python kit, and not only this, but we find it extremely intuitive to use, and all of this saves us a lot of time. And one of the obstacles that we have identified so far is the increasing gap between academia and industry, and we see that DLG is one potential solution to this, as it offers a common community ground. In fact, at Identrics, we have been experimenting a lot with what came out of OpusMT, for example, which is one of the GRID's pilot projects that supports an academia initiative. And we would certainly benefit from other similar open source solutions in the future, and definitely see some potential in collaborations with academia in this regard as well. Well, these were my few slides. Thank you for your attention and for listening to what we have to say.
Thank you. Thank you very much from this for this perspective from the east of Europe, from Bulgaria. We're going we're going west now to our next presenter, Peter Schwarz from Phonexia in the Czech Republic. I hope he's online. You can use me as a remote control for your presentation. The floor is yours, Peter.
So nice to meet you. Okay, so we see the slides. Actually, we based Phonexia because we saw that too many words, 35 trillion of words is spoken on planet every day, and some of them Okay, Gerhard, do you hear me?
We can hear you. Yes.
Oh, okay. So just next slide. So we decided that we build technology that help our clients to extract everything what is possible from speech and add some value to the information. Next slide, please. So we start building technologies that collect some pieces. So the technologies are like speech transcription, keyword spotting, language identification, diarization or speaker segmentation, gender identification, age estimation, and so on. All these pieces, and we start offering the technology through some server solution. Next slide, please. And after that, we basically start to build products or solution around the speech technologies. So here are a few use cases from the government area. So it may be intelligence, either open source or closed source intelligence. It may be forensic use case or criminal investigation. Next slide, please. In case of commerce, there are use cases like speech analytics. If everyone wants to optimize the contact center or to extract the business information from the traffic, it may be voice authentication. If we want to work better with people, control the access, do some personification, or in the last year, it is a lot about conversational AI. European company do not have people for contact centers, so the people are replaced by AI. Next slide, please. So our company, we have people with more than 55 years in the field. The company has more than 60 people. It was started as a spin-off from Brno University of Technology. So we have a really close relation to academia, and we have projects in more than 60 countries. It's growing all the time. Next slide, please. So when Gerhard came to me, I start with some brainstorming what actually we need for data resources and what we can offer. So what we are doing every day, we basically are collecting and cleaning data for speech transcription in many languages. So any data with speech transcripts are beneficial for us. What is interesting, the data now doesn't need to be 100 correct. We can work with data that have some labels. For example, labels from other commercial recognizers, or basically any labels what we can work with. Also, in speech transcription, there are related tasks like name entity recognition, digit, dates, times, normalization. So this is requested by clients, and we need to provide such tasks. What is seen in these days, we train on a huge quantity of data. So there are different resources that are in different formats, usually small quantities, but we need to convert these resources to the same format and then to train on it. So if we can share work on this part, it can help significantly. And also the data, if it is somehow uniform across languages, it speeds up the development. Next slides. So actually, how we could help? So as I said, we are building technology that can extract data or at least label some data. So we can provide multiple modalities. So we can offer the technology to extend the data that everyone from the community can offer or have. For example, we have more than 15 languages or transcription for more than 15 languages in Amazon Web Services. We can offer the metadata, and also we are part of several research projects where we try to collect our data. So probably something of these resources could be offered to the community. Next slide, please. Some motivation, basically why people should collaborate on data and resources. So for us, it is definitely the reduction of cost, because we license the data from many companies and we collect other data ourselves. we are trying to get or to find new ways to markets. So if we have here a joint market or some catalog, it can help, and it can help to all the companies and all the universities. Definitely shared development and data collection, but also the pipeline, data cleaning, data processing can move us further. We see huge potential in the sharing of models now, because before it was difficult. There were very diverse pipelines, diverse tools, but now with open source, basically shared toolkits, it's much easier and it can boost companies. Of course, shared technology is also one way. We see that the field is changing from a closed source solution to more open source solution. So we are also discussing this in company and would like to go in this direction. What is important now is the computational resources, because we see that to build good technology, more and more computational resources are needed. So I think some sharing here is important. And of course, everyone is doing the work in the compliance with legislative. So if we can bring or share procedures how to work with data in the legal way, it can also bring advantage. Please, next slide. So this is just, I mentioned it already, but what is the current trend? The current trend are big pre-trained models. It is seen in all the fields. It is in speech, natural language processing, dialogue, video, and this needs huge resources in data and in human resources, in computational resources. So if the company can share the way and maybe find common resources or data, and then each company can have its own downstream task. It could help all the participants that are involved. Next slide. And basically, how I see the community, or what can make the effort success. Basically, I think that if we manage to bring data, tools, models, and community to one place, and bring also the computational resources, I think it can be a living community. It can move the whole field further. So I believe that the combination of all these parts is the way how to succeed. So thank you, and Gerhard, please continue.
Thank you, Peter. And it's just another example of a small, worldwide, a small European player being active in all the continents on this planet. And we've been working together with Phonexia. Maybe a special case here is also that often we're dealing with law enforcement, and then the data sharing aspect is a completely different one, because it's not only a technical question, it's also a legal question very often. We've seen this chicken and egg problem very often. Law enforcement wants to evaluate something. They cannot give us the data to evaluate. We cannot give them the technology, so they can do the evaluations themselves, or they don't have the expertise. And it's a chicken and egg problem. In one of the projects where we worked with Phonexia, some middle ground was also found, the exchange of features that don't allow the recreation of the identity of a person, but still allowed one of the law enforcement agencies we're working with to evaluate things. And the second one, maybe a bit humoristic, but nevertheless, experience together with Phonexia is we were lucky enough that the Czech police was able to provide us with a drug dealing case in an anonymized, of course, way. And together with Phonexia and other friends in a project, we are reenacting drug dealing. So we're running around, in this case, the streets of Munich, being intercepted by the German police with real interception equipment. They're on board. Everything is real in this case. Of course, what's not real is we are not real. And we pretend to be as close as we can to drug dealers. I hope we're not doing a too good job. Otherwise, we'll be picked up on the street sooner or later by the police. But we are creating a corpus that allows multiple modalities, from images being taken where drug dealer may hide something, from backpacks changing owners underneath the desk of a fast food restaurant at a train station, all the way down to jargon and slang and ways that we learned from the police organizations how drug dealers talk to each other when they exchange things. They use words like vitamins, for example. So we're trying to mimic that and make it as closely resembling reality as possible in order to allow a whole suite, not a single, but a whole suite of technologies, from speech reco to speak identification, from named entity recognition to network construction. Who could be known? If I talk to Stelios about somebody called Georg and Stelios doesn't ask for him, it means the two of us know somebody. So network can be created and extended. And then maybe, some voice samples fit in there. And that was one of the challenges that we saw, is creating a corpus not only for one modality, not only for one technology, but for several, all at the same time. Not individual ones, but the same time. And we've been creating this corpus together we are actually still working on it together with Phonexia. So thank you also for that, Peter. All right, thank you very much. With that, we're taking a right turn, heading up north, and we'll go to Sweden. Fredrik will tell us about Gavagai, and the floor, Fredrik, is yours.
Thank you very much, Gerhard. And it's also awfully weird to see myself in not a mirrored mode, since we've been in this pandemic for a couple of years now, and we're used to see ourselves in a particular way, but this camera is not really mirrored. So I'll be quite brief, and we can switch to the next slide immediately, please. Okay, so my name is Fredrik. I run the data science team at Gavagai, and I'm also the head of product, which means that I have a close relationship with our partners, and as well as responding to their technical requirements. Gavagai as a company was founded in 2008 as a spin-off from a Swedish research research institution, Swedish Institute of Computer Science. And right now, what we're focusing on is natural language processing for customer experience. And so in that respect, we are part of an ecosystem. So we provide the expertise in natural language processing, and we partner with companies that have the customers in different domains that can actually make use of this knowledge that we are having. So we are one piece of the puzzle in a larger ecosystem. Right now, we are delivering services in 47 different languages. And we have a system for doing this, which is self-hosted. And right now we're processing tens of thousands of survey responses and support tickets and chats and so on per day. The product that we're selling is available as a web application as well as a REST API. And what you're seeing here in the screen is our vision and mission, which sort of tells the high-level story about what we're doing. So it's, in essence, what we're helping our customers with is to understand their customers, and we help them to discover, what they didn't really knew they needed to know, in a way. So this is really a discovery process that we're doing. Next slide, please. Yes. So, to put this more into context, I will tell you about two different but very typical use cases that we are participating in. So the first one is a always-on customer experience solution for retail that we're working with, where we continuously process thousands of survey responses per day. Like if you go to, well, I won't mention the customer's name, but if you go to this particular retail store and buy something from them, some of you will end up having exit surveys where you will answer to some questions that this company posed to you in different languages, and you will probably answer these questions. They collect all this, tens of thousands of this each day in over 30 different markets, 30 different languages. They have multilingual models running the same kind of topic analysis that's for all different languages. So they are able to measure the same kinds of KPIs and same kinds of metrics across all markets, and they do this on a daily basis, so they can actually track what people are thinking about them. They know how happy their customers are at any particular time, and they also merge this data that we are providing with their own data on everything from transaction and so on, so they can actually break down things quite granularly and see what stores are having troubles in a particular day, or what stores are having unexpected successes, and so on. And this, what we're providing for them is integrated with their customer experience solution, including visualization and so on. So this is the always-on CX solution for retail. Then we have another typical use case, which is that we are working with partners that have domain-specific knowledge and also have their own platforms for collecting data. So all the data that we are processing, more or less, are highly proprietary. There are like trade secrets of these particular companies. They are not. It's not at all public data. So in the second use case, we're usually working on a project-based level, where it's necessary for analysts, for our customers or partners analysts, to be able to rapidly model a domain in terms of topics and sentiments, and to come to some conclusion of, well, to analyze the questions that our customers are asking. So, for instance, one of these questions could be, what drives negative consumer satisfaction for a particular customer? So in essence, our partners want to know the answers to this particular question, because if they know the answers, they can provide their customers with like a to-do list. Well, in order to increase your customer satisfaction, you should address these 3 different things, and then we can do this measurement the next week again, or even the next day, and so on. And this is an ongoing process. So what we are actually providing here is a highly interactive and iterative elicitation of a topic model that helps an analyst to work to make this model that is also then deployed for production purposes, that is accessible using an API. So we provide both the web application and the REST API for that. Yes, and in this slide you can see an example of what we can do. A typical thing that we can see is well, a statement from a customer somewhere, and we can measure the topicality in that statement, and we can measure the sentiment, and we can do this in a way that spans across languages, and that helps our customers to understand their customers, which is becoming increasingly important, we notice. So we have customers working in very different domains, and many of them are not really technically savvy, and they are not in this for the tech, but actually for the business value. So next slide, please. So given all this, if we look at as we're quite a small company located in Sweden, and what we need from the European community regarding language technology, well, we would need, for instance, large data sets that are continuously updated in different languages, because this is what we use to pre-train our models. We would need annotated data, of course, for multi-class and multi-label text classification in particular, in many languages. And this is both for training as well as for evaluation and validation of models. But here's something else that we need. And this is something that we have not been struggling, but this is something we haven't been facing in any of the projects that we have been part of, is that we need, well, good, secure, and collaborative annotation tools. There are plenty of those. but we include processes. We need processes for eliciting annotation guidelines, because I have yet to encounter a company or academic that has actually thought much about how to elicit the actual guidelines for doing annotations. We always assume that there are guidelines, but when we face customers that are not really mature, it has to be a way of arriving at these guidelines in a very structured manner, and these guidelines can be very specific to a customer or domain or even a project. So that's one thing that we are looking for actively. Another thing that we need, since we are in a multilingual market, and I can tell you, even we have 47 languages in our services, but we don't have all these languages in-house, kind of obviously. So what we would need, and what we're also pursuing, is a network of speakers, native speakers, that are also linguistically knowledgeable in some sense, because we want to be able to discuss language, discuss culture, discuss markets, and understand how we can approach a certain data set in order to get the most of it, in a way. So it's more not so much the technical thing we're looking for. We're looking for the soft side, the business side of this. Next slide, please. So having said that, the data that we are processing are proprietary, and it's unfortunately nothing that we can share. What we can share, however, and what we can contribute to the European community is our experience from working with this kind of industry. We regularly do mentoring of individuals, and we do supervision of academic thesis in this area. We do events like this, and also something that I do when I have the chance is to preach data readiness, which is a way that we have found useful for talking about data with different kinds of stakeholders to make the business data-driven business, including things that we have already heard here today, licenses, clean data, ethics of data, privacy, and everything like this, to make sure that everyone speaks the same language, and that we can actually provide some business value and setting the expectations correct. So this is something that we do regularly, especially since we're working with people that have their own data. And by that, I would actually conclude and say thank you very much, and I can see that I'm actually on time. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Frederick, for these insights. And I think there are always technical items and there are the community items. I think you touched upon very important points, such as a model is actually old the moment we deploy it very, very often. And it needs to either develop by itself or it needs to be developed by users. And those users don't have to be NLP experts. How can we involve them? How can we integrate them? What's a good way of sort of like protecting them from themselves sometimes also? Yes. Very important points. And also working the cooperation in those tools and maybe creating such tools, annotation schemes. We've had lots of sweat and blood and what else on annotation projects. So I really feel for you. And thanks very much for sharing all of this information, insights with us again. And with this, I have the pleasure of switching from the virtual world to the physical world. Identrics is going to be with us, and I can take a pause from being the remote clicker here. The floor is yours.
Thank you. That's next is this, and the other way around. Hello, my name is Enric Plana, and coming from Barcelona, and I'm going to introduce some of the things that we actually touched base before in the presentation. We discussed about annotation and the need of large training data sets for improving the model for specific use cases. Before getting started, a little bit about myself. I have a background in telecommunications, so slightly different from most of the linguistic people here, but I spent most of my career working at Apple. Started on the hardware side, moved into software, and then later on services. And this is where I got started with language AI and international language. I was part of the team that was releasing CD for Europe 7-8 years ago. We actually started M47 Labs, a consulting company 4 years ago, and we are working with especially US companies who want to develop their AI projects in Europe. So we help them out with NLP engineering teams, computational language from all over Europe, and trying to help them out adapt the products to local markets. And through these 4 years working with several companies, we actually kind of like identified the major pain points that they were having to roll out NLP projects to production. And everything kind of like surrounded around data, but specifically to data annotation and annotating at scale in multiple different languages. And that's why last year we actually did the spin-off and created M47 AI, which is basically a data annotation platform focused on NLP. So the goal of our platform is to help out companies of any size to bring their NLP applications to production faster by managing, creating data labeling, and offering as many project types as possible for different NLP use cases, and basically managing all the workforce and platform projects and automation on one single platform. So just to kind of like this is an example of like a personal experience, what we find in a day-to-day basis for clients that we work for. And it usually comes with a company, any size, can be small, can be big, wanting to actually automate part of the process. It could be customer support, routing mails, call center, specific document insight application that you want to develop with internal databases. And they all have like a small engineering teams that they actually identify a large model, which we already discussed quite a lot today. They start parametering and trying to adapt to their specific use case, but the complications come when they need to actually train the model. And basically, the results with large models are good for general purpose, but when you actually want to adapt to a specific product line, specific use case, it's when they start falling apart. So that's when we get into the process of the machine learning project. And do a little bit of like a data structuring. We see a lot of companies with different departments trying to merge data and unify that. That's rather complex. So we start in that phase, but we are really focusing on the data annotation tools and platform. And basically like what we see in a day-to-day basis with clients is that this is an iterative project. So it never ends, and especially with products that are kind of like depending on live events or depending on ongoing versions. And that's what we actually do in between, like the initial business case and the model training on the engineering team. So we built a platform, it's a SaaS platform, and that can be deployed on premises, that can be also a hybrid mode, so that data from our clients can be stored in a secure way. It basically has 3 goals. One, reduce time and cost of generating the training data, and that I think it's one of the problems of most of the startup ecosystem trying to develop high accuracy NLP applications. The second one is improve model accuracy. We do this through a bunch of like data features, and we are not obviously parametering or tweaking the model, but we are trying to improve as much as possible the data quality. And the third one, and we've seen this being a challenge for a lot of companies right now, is to centralize and consolidate all the labeling operations. So everything related to generating training data for the models. There's some open source tools. I'm still surprised on how many companies still use spreadsheets to organize all the training data. Managing and mixing manual work with automated work is not so easy in many platforms. So we try to build one single stop platform for all the training needs. And this is basically like in 4 major principles. One is focusing on NLP, and that means that we try to provide as much customization on the UIs to fit every single NLP use case. You know that annotating for a specific use case is not similar in every single company, so we try to adapt and build a modular interface that can fit in many, many different NLP use cases. The second one, it's the management side of things. So basically having like a collaboration environment where you can track all the people who's doing the work. You can track the project stats, KPIs, statistics. Third one is we call it intelligent automation, but it basically is providing the ability to annotate via machine learning. So having ML assisted pre-annotation. We actually integrated weak supervision as well, and we have programmatic labeling. And on an ideal world, everything will be done manual in a ground truth, but it's super costly. So we try to provide all the tools necessary to actually find the right mix for every single company and client. And the last one, but not least, is the data quality. And we integrated algorithm techniques to check if the data sets are going to be labeled are a good fit for our general purpose. And we actually do a bunch of like a quality checks, not only for QA and review mode, but also for checking balancing on the data sets and the labels. So that's a little bit about our company and what we do. And just a quick run through about how we see ourselves fitting in with a ELG platform. And that's actually like a super good news that we actually have a bunch of like resources being found in one single place that makes it easy for a lot of companies to actually ramp up and start up NLP applications. There's like a tremendous trend in language AI companies in Europe and around the world, and this is making it easier for those companies to actually be able to develop applications, real-world applications in a cost-saving mode. So one of the other things I wanted to mention that I think would be super important for ELG to kind of like promote, it's trying to evangelize and educate the startup community in Europe to actually gear towards Europe rather than like looking at the US market. And that's something that I've seen in this past 2 years when, you know, like as private companies looking for investors and not public money. And the first things that we're being asked is, you know, like, is your product ready for the US market, English US? So it's efforts like ELG that can turn these around a little bit and make sure that the market in Europe is a growing one and something that startups are really looking forward to. So for us personally, obviously, it's an access to a pool of organizations, companies developing language technologies. So that's good for us in terms of like a usage of our platform. And super good to connect with leading institutions who are actually developing applications that maybe are not commercially ready right now, but will be in a couple of years. So for us, is learning from them is super interesting. So when we were discussing internally a little bit of the contributions to ELG from our side, and we are fairly new to the community, we kind of like thinking about providing our platform as a framework for anyone that needed annotation and collaboration tools to annotate. And this is something that if you plug it into the grid, it might be useful to actually explode and add additional functionality to the data sets and the ML models that are embedded there. For anyone who's actually tied to the community and to ELG, could actually reduce their development cost. There's a bunch of like companies developing their custom web applications to do annotation or using spreadsheets. So having access to a platform like this could be quite an advancement as well. So motivations basically for us is a learning curve. So I see a lot of brilliant people here. I had a super interesting day today, hearing a lot of stories from everyone, a lot of knowledge. So working with institutions and organizations like yours is super interesting for our company because it allows us to implement things that we think might be interesting for commercial use in a couple of years. So just summarizing the wish list, it's at least in my sector, the visibility for the ELG is not so big. It's not something that's publicly available. You have to be within the community to actually learn about all the stuff that's available for private companies. So increasing the visibility and getting exposure not only to public institutions and universities would be super interesting because a tool is as good as the people who's using it. So the more people that we have on the platform, the better it's going to get. And just last one note that I think the ELG grid is a step in the right direction to actually have a community that consolidates all the language data-centric efforts in Europe. So good job and keep it moving forward.
So thank you very much, and also for emphasizing the role of data curation. Also, corpus, also dataset doesn't live and die once, but it needs to be. Yeah, exactly. So we're slightly falling behind, so I can ask our next speaker, Andres, without much further ado, and please ask him to. Yes, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. So my name is Andres Mellik. I'm the CEO and founder, or an ex-CEO of a couple of companies, as well as advising, and I'll try to keep it a little bit shorter. But basically, we are very much on the application side of things. So we are a consumer, I think, of many of the language and speech technologies. So I'm going to talk about 2.5 of them quickly. So the first one, which has been around for about 4 years, is called Cognuse. So essentially, it's a guideline and protocol adherence platform for the healthcare domain. In the healthcare domain, one of the largest cost items for the healthcare providers is something called unwarranted care variation. So it's basically moving away from the standard of care for unexplained or unexplainable reasons. And that basically results in excess cost that the insurance companies are not paying back to the hospitals. So, and one of the main reasons for that is deviation from the standards, which is leading to things like medical errors. And so we looked at very hard at the problem itself. And one of the top 3 reasons is the guidance that the nursing staff is getting in real time or in preparation and so forth. So we basically set to develop a 2-tier platform. One has a content management system that basically enables the customers to transform the content. So there's a lot of text processing there and analytics as well. And the other one is a delivery mechanism, which is essentially a mobile platform, and we deliver it in a voice-guided manner. So basically in real time, they can request procedural guidance, they can give their feedback, they can stop, pause it, and so forth. So that's another use case where we actually use voice control, so speech recognition, and synthesis to deliver the content. And there's a few other areas where we support the nurses, like their mental health state, reporting anonymously any kinds of deviations, and operating the equipment correctly, but I won't get into those in too much detail at the moment. And the second platform is very much related to speech technology, so it's called SpeakDX, and it's basically a interactive digital speech therapy environment, which has been around for about 8 years now. It's implemented in 5 countries. We're adding another 5 this year, another 5 next year, but basically it provides in the sort of setting of let's say, lack of resources in terms of speech and language pathology and so forth, which everybody probably is aware of, at least the ones who have kids, because about 25% of kids have some type of a speech impediment. So we basically developed a personalized one, where you can also have video consultations, comprehensive overview of results, and I won't go into the sort of, for us, the obvious benefits, logistical and otherwise, financial as well, but we are using a lot of different language and speech technology components there as well. And anything from basically automatic translation to speech synthesis and so forth. Both of those companies are relatively small companies, even though they are operating in about 15 countries combined. We do work with larger players as well, such as Philips, for instance, and what we do with them is they have a population health tool where they collect patient-reported outcomes and experiences, which nowadays is getting more and more attention with value-based care and actually looking at what patients are saying. And so what we do is we then analyze that data coming from those platforms, and we make an attempt to make automatic interventions. So if anybody is reporting, let's say, after stroke, they have problems with their speech, aka aphasia, we can anonymously and automatically trigger an intervention from our SpeakDX platform for those patient pools, which is, believe it or not, it's actually relatively innovative even in 2022. And just to sort of summarize on what we're doing on the application side, and I'm sorry I didn't have time to design this slide because I was relatively late. I just signed up to sit in the back row and learn more about what's going on, because we are very interested, as you can see, about the smaller languages, small and smaller languages here in the middle that we have implemented the platforms in. But then because I'm from the industry, I was asked to participate in the panel as well, which I'm very glad to do. And the third product actually has to do directly with medical coding. So basically, and that's a direct NLP problem. How do you find correlations between patient notes, the physician's experiences, previous performance, the feedback from the insurance companies and so forth. And that is currently only available in English, but we're looking to do this in other languages as well, because as you can probably see, from the societal challenges point of view, we are only focusing on things which are very impactful, or where there's a shortage of specialists, staff, people in general, that cannot be solved only by increasing the educational, let's say, ordering or from the governments. So there are not enough people, that's a fact. Technology has to come to help. And just to save time, I will not go into the offer and ask part from the ELG, because I would basically like to mirror 100% what the previous four had to say. But in our case, what we can offer is a very domain-specific sets in various languages. For instance, with children with speech impediments, we can anonymize them. We can also do it in the text format. We can do the same for the healthcare workers and so forth. And I'm very glad to be part of this. Well, we haven't registered as a company yet, but essentially part of the group, and to see how we can utilize those resources and what we can give back. And at first glance, it's already overwhelming, and I've been actually waiting for this for a long time, because for instance, with SpeakDX, if you take Estonian, which is our native language, we've had if you take somebody with a speech impediment, it's almost impossible to apply the current technology effectively. And also in the clinical setting, if it doesn't work, let's say 99.999% of the time, in terms of voice control, they're not going to use it. But I'll end with that sort of passive-aggressive note. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andres, and we'll take some of your statements as testimonials, I think, on the ELG website. And the medical sector is certainly one that has special needs, ethics, security, privacy, and so on. Thank you for sharing this. And with this, we're a bit over time, but we'll sneak in the last presentation. Oskars will be giving the presentation in a hybrid way again. And There he is. And I'll ask Oscar in the spirit of the lack of time to please speed up as much as possible. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. So yes, I will try to be quick and give you a short perspective on from the other side. So because we are not a provider of any data solutions, but we are the end user. So what can I quickly tell you about Kantar? Globally, it's a huge company, so employing over 30,000 people and present in over 90 markets. Our largest divisions is media and insights. The amount of work done, of course, is huge. As you may know, probably the main thing that we do is surveys. So it's tens of millions of respondents each year that we survey. But today I can't speak on behalf of full Kantar, so I will speak about Latvia. So next slide, please. What you have to know when thinking about Latvia, then the numbers are small. So we're dealing with small numbers. There are only 2 million Latvian speakers in the world, which means that the tools available for speech recognition, any language tools actually are quite limited. And still that doesn't change the fact that we have the local market to serve, and we have to deliver results quickly for any, be it advertising monitoring or audience data, or on this case, more connected to the language services. And therefore, we have lately found a solution to also implement some automation in our daily jobs, which of course works together with human input for the time being. So next slide, please. What is that we do? It's media intelligence, and the language technology we use is speech-to-text automation. As I said, Latvian language does not have many providers of services, but we are lucky to have a local Latvian company, Tilde, who has the highest quality Latvian language tools, of course. They are working globally, but we at the moment use their Latvian language services also in the neighboring Lithuania, Lithuanian language tools. And the amount that we process is for the monitoring that we provide for our clients. It means that we process several hundred websites and print media, but speech recognition, of course, works for the TV and radio sources. And we process around 300 hours weekly of audio from television and radio, which means that it would be very hard to do manually. In fact, interestingly, 17 years ago, when I started work for Kantar, I was a data monitoring specialist. So I was the person who literally sat down for the whole day listening to radio and recognizing advertising and manually entering this database of advertising, which is, of course, currently done by automated tools. Gladly, I would say that it's not a manual work any longer. So when thinking about ELG, where we of course are not the direct users, but we could also enjoy some of the benefits from the European language grid. As I see, this could provide us with lower cost and quicker delivery options, because still, especially the cloud computing is one of the kind of bottlenecks, where if we could just get the process done faster, It's of course possible now, but it costs quite a lot more. So if the cost and quickness could be somehow made better, which I believe could be done via ELG, we would appreciate it very much. We are happy that the European Union is supporting such a platform to make sure that also small languages like Latvian has the possibility to develop tools and make them available for a broader market in Europe. And of course, I hope that in the future, using the ELG, we could think about implementing new services. Like, for example, this could be automated summaries, which are currently done, of course, by human input. But I see that this is some area where there could be new developments that we can really use in business. Okay, next slide, please. And that is my thank you slide, as I promised, very short, as we are running out of time. So thank you.
With this, I'd like to thank all the participants again. We chose a very agile approach and we lived the agile approach. Thanks very much for taking part and sharing your insights and information with us. And with this, I conclude the industry session. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Gerhard. Also to the speakers here virtually. That was very, very interesting. And yeah, as coordinator, I'm extremely happy about the really testimonial-worthy statements we received. That was great. And we will use them.